Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out this episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with Vander. Today, we're going to talk about Group Patrons, the second chapter of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's one of the shorter chapters. It's only 20 pages. Um, and the purpose of it is to help game masters or dungeon masters help develop like almost like a backstory to the adventure. Your team has a chance to have a patron to help them on their way to their adventure. There are about 8 types that they give examples for. There's Academy, Ancient Being, Aristocrat, Criminal Syndicate, Guild, Military Force, Religious Order, and Sovereign. And then there's like a half a page explanation if you want to become a patron yourself.
So when I first read this, when we were first going through the book, I didn't like it. I think because it was just so thick of reading, and after reading every class, it just, I don't know. I think just where it was is what didn't fit. If they put it at the end, it would have made more sense. But I didn't like it in the beginning. Rereading it, I actually enjoyed rereading it again. I won't lie. The descriptions for the examples of patrons was great. And I think as a dungeon master, I think this is very useful to help. It would work best either for completely new D&D players who just need a reason to like actually like commingle, or like advanced players that have found every way in the book to commingle and now just need something new. Like at least with these, you have 8 new options. Um, I really like the idea. I think this is a great way, and the information that they give is a great way for a DM to make villains, recurring villains that are interesting too. Um, and I'll talk about that when we get into more details about like a couple of the individual patrons. How about you? What did you think about after you gave it a new look?
I feel the same way that you did when you first looked at it. I saw this section. I was like, I'm never going to use this. I mean, I've dungeon mastered for such a long period of time that I'm really good at homebrewing, like on the spot, like improv, right there and then. So I looked at this and like, oh, I'm never going to use this, and I just kept on. I just looked through it, and then I just jumped ahead. Um, I did look at it again, and now I have a different appreciation for it. I think that, okay, perhaps personally myself, I would never use it. But I think there are game masters out there that, especially if they're new and maybe they haven't developed like the art of storytelling just yet, this is a really great way for them to like learn right away. Not learn right away, but see, what's great about this chapter is that they only to give you the descriptions of each of the possible patrons that you may have. They give you charts. So if let's say I'm gonna pick one random. I'm gonna pick a Academy. Let me grab a D6. So in Academy, they have certain charts so that if you want to quickly build something up, you can, you know. So if you have no time to really like sit down and develop it, you just grab a D6 and let's say Academy type. I roll 3. Secret monastery. Ageless secrets remain the focus of contemplation and rigorous training at this site. Okay, that's cool. Who's the contact there? Roll a d6. Number 5, spectral fragment. A haunted piece of the Academy's collection compels you to complete its secret research. And there's a bunch more. There's like quests. There are the roles that you can be as an adventurer in that academy, and of course it gives you explanations. It gives you the tools you need so that you can make this believable to your players. So I think for that reason, that's fantastic.
Agreed, and that's what I like about it too. So I love that they made it so if you roll 3d6, which is like what you use to roll your stats, is also the way you find your thing. So like aristocrats was one of my favorites. So like again, roll 3d6. Let's say you get a 1, 2, 3. You have a local lord. Your contact is a professional that works with them, and then your quest is to sabotage a rival. Like it's so easy and smooth to do that. But what I like, I think this is great again to help new players to be like, we need a starting place for whatever journey. In most adventures, you don't need that, and most of the pre-written ones, it's really, you really don't need it unless you want to add it for flavor. Like Tyranny of Dragons. You don't really need any of this unless you want to add it. Descent into Avernus. It could help because you're involved with crime syndicates before, but you don't need it to go to hell. It doesn't hurt the story if you add it. What I think is great is as a DM, if you have a group of bandits attacking your players and they kill those bandits and they find that all the bandits have an insignia on them and they don't know what that insignia is, you can decide if that band of bandits was connected to something more important. And you can re-roll these 3d6s again and say they were part of a crime syndicate. They specifically were looking for. Gotta go find the page. They were part of a magical arms dealer, and because you stop them, you're the contact for who was ever left is, we'll say, a clever urchin child. Now you have urchins following you in the street because of that, and you can make your main group's enemy force out of this. So, like, if you have member roles, criminal syndicate again. Maybe your players is like a knight and a sage and a good-hearted thief. Well, now there is a mastermind and a mole and a con artist who are pissed off at them because they killed their friends. So now you have these three new enemies that have a purpose, and you can relate back to it, and you can use this chart if you don't want to create it yourself. But after you create these few little things, the ball in your head should really get rolling. So you're able to build a small crime syndicate based off of this that is now something your players could have to deal with. I think the world building that options that this gives you is great.
Should we talk really briefly about each patron, that options that they give you?
Sure. I just scrolled way past it. So if you want to start off with the Academy, I will join you in a second.
To say it briefly, if you like Harry Potter, this is probably what you want to, the world you want to play in. This is probably the option you want to choose. I mean, you could set up at your boarding school. You could have I guess the principal, the wizard principal, help you on your quests. If you could set it that way, or you could just choose it randomly. But yeah, that a great option. I mean, Harry Potter is still a very popular property. They're still coming out with movies and so forth of things. And there's even other shows that deal with school of some sort. At least it was more popular years ago than they are now.
The Magicians, Camp Half-Blood from the Percy Jackson books, and the Olympians. There's a lot of those like home-y type academy areas that give you a lot of variety, and they don't have to be homey either. That's just what we automatically imagine because we imagine schools of witchcraft and wizardry, but they don't have to be homey. They can be more intellectually based. The second one is Ancient Being, which I love. I already kind of do this for my Descent into Avernus group. They have an archfey that they're all trying to help, and they have a pit fiend they're trying to help from the Shield of the Hidden Lord from the original story. And they basically have two patrons, but they're also there are great boons that'll come with it, but there are many dangers, and they have specific positions, and each of them have a different hierarchy position with those creatures. And the examples they give is like an elder dragon, a lich, a bound feed, a celestial. There's a lot to work with there, and it's, if you want to go instead of more technical, more metaphysical and more open-ended, an Ancient Being kind of fits that because they can be as involved or not involved as you want them to be.
Aristocrat is one of my favorites. I think of all the settings I've used in the past, I think Aristocrat is something I've used over and over again. That's nothing like dealing with someone that's giving you a quest, but it's also a pompous jerk. Pompous wrist jerk. But yeah, it's the same thing where you work for royalty or a noble of some sort, and there could be perks. They tend to be well off, so it may help you with equipment if you're in good relations with them. You also, if you want to do more political games, this may be the way to do so as well.
Yeah,
which I like doing a lot.
And Crime Syndicate's kind of like the flip of that almost, where it's like Aristocrat is probably the more legal way. The Crime Syndicates are kind of like the more illegal ways of that. But it's, again, you can get a pompous. You could be dealing with if you're at sea, you could be dealing with pirates. If you're, in a city, it could be an arms dealer or a thieves guild. It gives you a lot of variety there. And again, like you said, like could be a pompous ass, could be very serious. And the advantages are like in whatever situation, and you could have places to hide, like safe houses, fences who know how to like turn goods over real quick for you. And depending on your group, like you could be playing a syndicate and a aristocrat against each other or with each other. Could be the same person. Like you don't even know.
Guild's also another good one. I know people tend to think of thieves guilds and assassins guilds, which you should really look back at criminal syndicate for that.
Mhm.
This particularly tends to focus on like merchants guilds or art guilds. Although one option here, which I know not too many people ever think of when it comes to guilds, is like guilds that deal with like archaeology or things with like things of history. So if you want to do like a Indiana Jones type of adventure where you're searching for lost relics, this is probably the option for you.
Yeah, Guild was great. I didn't think about Guild until I read it, and then I read it and I was like, I don't know why I don't include stuff like this more because this sounds awesome.
Mm,
Um, but the one after Guild is Military Force, which is probably like the easiest. I'm sure you'll have at least, there's a good chance, out of a 4-person party, one of them is probably lawful in some form, so you could have them with the military. They could be mercenaries related to the military. They could be just like an offset force that's out in the distance. They could be people who are from other planes. But I mean, that gives you military background. It gives you also excuses for things like, hey, do we understand hand signals? Because we're a military group that knows hand signals. And now you guys have this way to communicate that you didn't know before, technically. Or that you have a reason to know, which could be super helpful when you're trying to stealth or be quiet. Um, but that's just like one of the many things. And then like commanding officers, you have military envoy roles, so the roles that you could have, like being a spy, which could relate to the criminal syndicate again. Could be a scout, a medic, tactician. If you like Fire Emblem, um yeah, it's I think military could be fun when if you're stuck in a lawful environment where rule of law is the law.
mm, indeed. Um, Religious order, I think they did a really good job with this section because usually when I think of religious order, like my default is thinking some sort of like monastery with a bunch of monks and clerics studying. But they do a good job of making it sound more exciting, like undead hunters as a religious order sounds fantastic. So if you want like to have an order that hunts down like vampires, for example, kind of like like Stroker's Dracula or things like that, that's something that I think would be a good option.
Last one is Sovereign. Sovereign is both very specific and very unparticular at the same time. It's basically just it's a leader. It's a face of some sort, and that could be like an actual king or queen. That could be someone from like even a small town like council that just wants to rise in power. It's basically someone who's looking to rise in power and see that they have a seat of power by the end of it all. And it could be someone who is smart. It could be someone who is charismatic, but they're gaining a following of some sort, and you can help that rise to power. And I think that's awesome. I just love the idea of that.
It wasn't really mentioned here, but I just want to say as an extra bonus, about almost 2 years ago, there was a book that came out called Acquisitions Inc. that came out for D&D, a source book. And that deals with, it's almost in a way, it's a patron itself. It's a business, comedic business, if anything, where you set up to get paid for adventures. So I want to say that's a really good book. So if you're looking for something like a scenario, a patron that deals with comedy and business in some way, that's probably one you should also check out as well.
And then we have the being your own patron section, which I think is great. It's very simple and detailed, but it does help. It tells you basically where to find the more important things, like in the Dungeons Master Guide. But I personally have characters who, like in Baldur's Gate, in Descent to Avernus, they had to deal with Nine Fingers Keen. They had to deal with like the ruler of the guild in like the most disastrous city, and we're like, I'm gonna topple her. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a spreadsheet ready, so whenever you try to do that, we can go force against force and like see your growth. And like same with like running a business. Sometimes you run a business as a character. Being a patron is Not too dissimilar, except it's way more personable, way more detailed with people and their actions, and like there's a good chance that you're just going to be creating like a small army of NPCs to be doing your bidding, depending on how big you grow, which I think could be really fun.
So that's the end of the chapter. Let us know what you think about these patrons. What ones we haven't mentioned before. What's a patron that would be a great for your campaign? So yes, take care, everyone. This is Manny. I'm here with Vander, and we'll see you later.